let's move on because we're going to specifically focus on this word recognition piece now as we move forward. All right. So we're going to start with phonological awareness. Okay. So phonological awareness, big, 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 big word. Basically, what we're doing with phonological awareness is we are playing with the sounds that are in the spoken words. Okay. So if we're proficient with this, then we have a great ability to be able to hear those sounds, manipulate those sounds, and then eventually the next piece is if we can correctly separate those sounds, then we can connect letters to those sounds and hence be able to read. So it's kind of a simple explanation of how we learn to decode. But our first step is being able to hear those sounds. If we cannot specifically be able to divide those sounds, then how are we going to be able to correctly attach letters to those sounds? So phonological awareness is that ability to be able to segment the sounds, to also be able to blend sounds together, and then also manipulate them. This specifically strengthens the foundation, just like I said, with connecting the letters to the sounds. So, for example, if you look at our picture here, so we have somebody who is speaking out the word map. Okay, so that's why it's in that particular cloud right there, because it's not we're not reading this word. We're just pretend like we're hearing this word. We're hearing the word map. Okay. So having strong phonological awareness means, okay, I can hear the word map and I can hear the individual sounds in that word. So map. So it starts with an and then there's an a, and then there's a p. Okay. So for those who have strong phonological awareness, that's like a simple thing. It's like, well, of course, doesn't everybody do that? And the answer is no. Actually, not everybody can do that. So if we're having trouble being able to segment sounds that are in those words, then we're going to have trouble being able to attach letters to those sounds. So this is specifically what I'm doing here is phonemic awareness, which is a segment of phonological awareness. But phonological awareness also has to do with syllables. So, and also rhyming words. So if we're having trouble being able to rhyme words, where we're hearing the specific onset, which is basically the first letter, or letters before the vowel, and then the rhyme part, which is the vowel plus the rest of that word. So if we're having trouble with being able to kind of hear that and then being able to find other words that rhyme with that, then we could have a little bit of weakness with that phonological awareness. But this is also has to do with syllables too. So being able to kind of hear how many syllables are in a particular word, that helps us to be able to spell that word and also be able to rightly divide certain words as well. So that's all being able to kind of feel the syllables in a word. That's all part of that phonological awareness. So again, this is foundational for being able to connect letters to sounds, which is the next part. So this specifically is that second part of the word recognition cluster. So this is letter sound knowledge or decoding. So now you can see, now we have little eyeballs on there because now we're actually seeing the word map. So when we're reading that particular word, having letter sound knowledge is, oh, okay, well, I can see an M. I know that says I see the letter A there. I know that that's going to say ah because it's in a closed syllable. And so now I see the P and that's going to say the P sound. So I see those letters, I know the sounds they make, and now I'm going to blend them together into the word map. So that's proper decoding. And yes, it is true. We're actually going to talk a little bit in just a second about sight recognition because as fluent readers, we're not doing this with every single word. We're not going, oh, map. Okay, every single time I encounter that, I'm going to have to say, map. When we're fluent readers, we have actually basically mapped that into our brain, and that's what becomes sight recognition. Is that I've read this word, I have decoded this word, and so now my brain is able to basically have a sight recognition for this word. That is very, very different from just seeing a sight word. So we'll talk about that in just a second. But this specific part, letter sound knowledge, is so important. It is so crucial to be able to read words, but also to be able to spell words. So if you think about it, if I hear the sounds in the word map, okay, so now let's just say I'm trying to spell the word. And so I hear the sound map, or I hear the word map. If I'm not able to rightly divide the sounds, p, then I'm not going to be able to spell that. So you can already see where that phonological awareness piece is so important to spelling. Okay. So, but now let's say, okay, no, I can hear the sounds. I know that there's an and there's an and there's a p. So now I need to spell that word, but I'm not sure what says I'm not sure what says I think it, and maybe I'll write an N because I seem to recall that it looks something like that. And so I'll write an N. And that means that it's not correctly mapping. It means my letter sound knowledge is not 100% solid. So that is very important to have. And this is a very simple explanation or a simple example with the word map, but it obviously gets a little more intense as we start to go into words that have letters that are clustered together, like our consonant digraphs, like for example, CH. A digraph is where you have two letters coming together to make one sound. So those are very important pieces to map in the brain in order to be able to read and spell. So now we're going to move into that last piece of word recognition, which is called sight recognition. And so I touched on that just a little bit just before, but sight recognition is basically I see that word and I've already mapped this word map. I've already mapped this word in my brain. And so my brain's going, "Oh yeah, I remember. I've already decoded that before and I've already stored that in my memory bank back here. So that's it. So I've seen that before, so I'm going to speak that word map. So let me differentiate this from what we call sight words. So we have other words, and yes, there are certain words that we can't decode. Like for example, the word have. That has an HAVE. Well, if we were to use our decoding strategies, then we would say have instead of have. But instead, it is an actual sight word where we just have to kind of remember, use some memory tactics in order to remember that that's the word have. But that's not what we're talking about when we're talking about sight recognition here. So sight recognition is where the brain is storing words that we have decoded prior. And we have a large memory bank as we continue to decode those words. So you can understand how this is a very important piece to be starting early on. So that's why we often say that early intervention is key because if we're in our kindergarten and first grade, second grade kind of years, we really need to be mapping these decoding strategies and really solidifying these pathways in order to be able to have that sight, a large bank of words that we've already committed to sight recognition as we're moving forward. So, but all that to say though, that if we are at the stage, like let's say we're beyond our second grade, let's say we're in our upper elementary or middle school or even high school, the brain is awesome because it has a capability of being able to learn to decode at any age. So, yes, early intervention is key, but even if we're in those upper grades, we can still learn to decode and that it becomes easier for us. So these are basically the areas: the phonological awareness, the sight, the letter sound knowledge, and then the sight recognition. Those are just very important pieces to be able to read the words that we see on the page.